Hi and welcome to Chester Beatty, a museum in the middle of the city centre within the beautiful grounds of Dublin Castle. Chester Beatty is devoted to the promotion and understanding of world cultures, with rare scripts, manuscripts and treasures from Europe, the Middle East, North Africa and Asia among its collections. Come with me on a journey into Chester Beatty and we meet Kristine Ruzbihan to discuss together the magnificent and stunning manuscript, the Ruzbihan. Come on. This is Kristine Ruzbihan, and she's head of conservation here at Chester Beatty. And she's brought along her own object that she wants to share with me today. So, Kristine, tell me about your object.
Of course. So this is a Qur'an manuscript, which is the Holy Book of Islam. And this particular copy was made around 1550 in Shiraz in Iran. So let's have a look. So the binding is not from that date.
Okay.
The binding is probably 19th century. And actually it was conserved and rebound, that's what I do, in 2018.
Ooh.
But let's get to the pages.
And was it conserved here, Kristine?
Yes, by a team of people. So two of my former colleagues worked on the pages and the pigments, which we'll see. And then I rebound it.
Oh, wow.
So that's not a bad start, is it?
Oh my God, that's stunning.
So you can see that in the Islamic world, the book opens to the right.
Yeah.
So the spine is on the right. So it's the opposite way round to a European book.
Yeah. And what are we looking? I mean, they're stunning, but what are they?
So this is called a shamsa, this design, which is like a sunburst. And it here begins with the very beginning of the Qur'an. So again, the text goes from right to left, and we can follow it through the middle. It's in white here against the gold. And this is just to really give you a stunning opening to the Qur'an. It's so beautiful, isn't it?
Oh my God.
I think the combination of the colours and the script with the sort of painted decoration is just completely spectacular.
Was that hand done?
Completely by hand. So it's a manuscript, which means made by hand, written by hand. Every single part of this. And it was made by a master calligrapher called Ruzbihan. So we call this the Ruzbihan Qur'an. And he was renowned in Iran at this time. But he wouldn't have worked on the manuscript alone. He would have had a team of artists helping him. Doesn't mean so much. So this is a normal page, which is still quite beautiful.
It's beautiful. So this is where the Quran itself is starting to, you know, the text of the Quran is coming to the fore.
So it actually started right at the beginning in that sunburst, the Shamsa, and then it goes right through. So the Quran is made of 114 chapters, and there are chapter headings. So they're the ones that have that extra bit of decoration, and we'll see those going through. And generally, the chapters are longer at the beginning and shorter at the end. So as we get towards the end of the manuscript, you see more of those decorative headings for the chapters. But then you have things like this, which are verse counters, so they keep a running total of every 5 or 10 of the verses within a chapter. And then on the actual folios you see these, which are little verse markers, and so they show you where a verse begins and ends. So there's a lot of organisation. The planning to put something like this together is spectacular as well. They didn't just pick up a piece of paper and start writing.
I would say, I mean, you know, I'd say this took years, if not generations, to make. Would you think it was like some master project that they decided, right, we're going to do this, it's going to take
absolutely
50 years, whatever?
So
60.
we know that it was Ruzbihan, this master calligrapher, and we know that he would have had a team, a workshop that he had of people working with him. And because you had multiple people, that means things could be achieved in a relatively shorter period of time, but we don't know exactly how long. But certainly looking at the scale of this, looking at all of the details, all of the pigments and colours that have been used, we're talking years.
I think so,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, at least. And
Yeah.
and what do we know about Ruzbihan? Is that how?
Ruzbihan.
Ruzbihan.
Yes.
So do we know much about that person?
We know more manuscripts which have his name. So we know that he's signed some manuscripts. So it's not just this Quran. There are other manuscripts in collections around the world which he worked on. But this is kind of largely seen as his great life's work, as a real accomplishment, a feat of his expertise.
And we have it
And
here
we have
in
it here.
Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's incredible, isn't
It
it?
is. And the blue actually is the most precious colour because that's made from lapis lazuli, which is a semi-precious stone, but it produces the colour ultramarine.
Oh, yes. Gosh, it's just such a beautiful thing.
It's a lovely thing. I want to show you back towards the beginning of the book.
And it's so big as well. There's something
is.
about its size that makes it really special too, isn't it?
Absolutely. You can imagine somebody reading this hundreds of years ago and they would have read it on a râl, which is a traditional book support, much in the way that we use a cushion.
Yeah.
And what that means is that the book can only open to a certain angle. It's not meant to open flat on the table. So again, it's that kind of sense of occasion, of respect towards the book, which is so important. I'll turn to the middle, maybe we can find a different colour. Blue. It's a blue day.
Lovely.
Can you hear the paper as well?
Yeah, I can. I love it. Oh,
No. And that's because of the surface size, so it gives
Yeah.
it that kind of rattle.
gorgeous.
But there are 100 different shades of blue, which is quite amazing. And it's all from that one material, the lapis lazuli, which makes ultramarine.
What do these dashes here mean? Do you know what those dashes mean?
That's a really good point. I can't
'Cause I've seen
remember.
it somewhere else on a different page. Oh, it's just, every page is just so beautiful. All the colours work together.
So, because it's a Quran, obviously it's written in Arabic.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a slightly different colour.
Yeah.
But there are different scripts used for different areas. So this kind of larger script here for the bigger passages of text, and then they go to a smaller text in the middle. So even the choice of script is varying across the pages. These ones, I think you can just about see they're kind of a pale pink behind the gold. And when we were carrying out the analysis, we found that they're made with safflower, which is an organic plant dye from a flower. And by adjusting the pH of the dye, you can get all these different tones of peach and pink. So it's probably exactly the same colour that was used for these speckles in the background, and then the darker speckles here. But these little ones, another reason we were curious to find out what they were made from, when our colleague Fiona was looking at these under the microscope, she saw that these aren't painted directly on the page, they're adhered to the surface of the page. So they're a little cut-out paper panel that's been stuck in. And that suggests to us again that, okay, well, they dyed the paper separately, then they cut it to size and inserted it, because you can't dye that area on a page.
So, just to be clear, so these are like little panels that were separately prepared
Yes,
and then put on the page.
absolutely.
So yeah, so
Each
that's
of
the
those.
teamwork as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. So you'd have had someone preparing that dyed paper, someone painting the gold, someone sticking it in, and then someone else coming through adding these green borders. There are so many hands at work.
And every page would have to have been planned
Absolutely.
as part of the bigger plan, wouldn't
Yes.
it? Because they would have had all of this. These next few pages are going to be this colour scheme. the next-
Precisely.
oh.
And the facing pages always match, so
Yeah.
they're always sort of a mirror image in the colour. And that's also quite difficult to plan because you're not taking one piece of paper. You've got several pieces of paper nested together to form a quire, which is one element of the book that you sew together to make the whole.
What do you think the original cover was like? Do you have any idea, or is there any history to tell us what it was like?
We don't have Ruzbihan's original binding, very sadly, but we do have examples of other bindings made in Shiraz in the mid-16th century, and they are incredibly ornate. So I know this is a nice book, book binding, and it belongs with the manuscript, but in comparison to the type of bindings that it would have been, it sort of pales into the background. They had quite a lot of pressure tooling, so I think it's at the back. So this is pressure tooling, where you use a metal or sort of hardened leather tool to emboss the surface of the leather when it's still damp, and then it could be painted with gold. But in the 16th century, this was another art form. So you would expect to see perhaps a central medallion or something large to fill a large panel for the central area, and then with these little cartouches repeated all the way round the edges. That would have been quite common. And then on the inside of the covers, the board linings, I'll come to what we have now is kind of a plain calf leather with just a few motifs, and what we would be more likely to see on a 16th century Iranian Qur'an binding is filigree. So that's where the leather is pared incredibly finely and then cut out. So you get these really, really intricate relief designs inside. But where is it? Maybe it's at the other end. It must be at the beginning. Occasionally in these books you can see a hint of it, because on their first and last pages there'll be a slight sort of shadow from where the binding was, and Ruzbihan does have that very slightly, I think. So yes, can you see here there's like a half oval?
Yes.
And then here you just get a hint of the little cartouche and the corner pieces and another frame. So we can be certain that for at least some of its lifetime, he was in what we would expect to be a mid-16th century binding. But it's just so tantalising. You only get a hint of it today, sadly.
But it's like detective work though as well. It's kind of nice, isn't it?
It is.
Oh gosh, there are so many secrets in this book.
There really
are just
are.
so many secrets that are being revealed.
And I think that's also why in conservation it's very much about trying to preserve what we have today. We're not trying to restore it and make it look as it was when it was new, because we want all of that information to live with the book. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for showing me your special object today. I have loved every second of it, and I'm so lucky that I got to get you to open so many pages and reveal the beauty and all the work that's gone into conserving it, and the fact that it is a book, but it's also this living, it's almost like this living thing that you've developed this really intimate relationship with. So thank you so much, Kristine.
Such a pleasure, thank you.